Lesson 1.5, Exploring Angles. So the objective for this lesson is to identify special angle pairs and to use their relationships to find angle measures. So angle pairs are two, like a pair of stocks means two things, right? So angle pairs means two angles that have a specific relationship. And I'll go over a couple of those relationships with you guys. So the first one is adjacent angles. So adjacent angles are two angles with a common side, a common vertex, and no common interior points. So that's important. No common interior points. So I'm going to go over an example of it. So adjacent angles are angles that are next to each other. So the only thing that they have in common is the side and the vertex. So again, they are next to each other. The only thing they have in common is the side and the vertex. One does not contain the other one. So same thing with angle 3 and 4. If you see angle 3 and 4, this is the only thing that they have in common, the side and the vertex. The next one is vertical angles. So vertical angles are two angles whose sides are opposite rays. So that basically means that when you have two straight lines, they have to be two straight lines. When you have two straight lines that are crossing each other, vertical angles are the angles that are opposite. So 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. And we don't cover this in the lesson, but when you have vertical angles, they're equal to each other. So if this is 135, that's going to be 135. If this is 30, that's going to be, so angle 1 is 30, angle 2 is also going to be 30. And the other two you should have already known by now. It's complementary angles and supplementary angles. So if you remember from middle school, complementary angles are two angles that add up to 90 degrees. So if you remember, right angles are 90 degrees. So any two angles that make a right angle are complementary, but they do not have to be adjacent. They do not have to be next to each other. You could also have two angles like 47 and 43 that can make 90 degrees. So if you add them up, they make 90 degrees. And supplementary angles are two angles that add up to 180. So supplementary angles, if you remember, a straight line is 180. So if you have two angles that make a straight line, then they're supplementary angles. Or, same thing as complementary angles, they do not have to be attached to each other. They don't have to be adjacent. You could have two angles, so 137 plus 43, they add up to 180. So they are also supplementary. So next thing what we're going to do is we're going to try a couple of practice problems. So we have to use the diagram on the right, and we have to determine whether each statement is true or false and why. So the first one says BFD and CFD are adjacent angles. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark them up. So BFD is this angle right here. And CFD, I'm going to change my color. CFD is this angle right here. So are they adjacent? So if we remember the definition of adjacent angles, the only thing that they should have in common is a ray. So look at this. They do have this ray in common, but that's the only thing they have to have in common. They cannot have common interior points. So are these next to each other, or does one contain the other one? So isn't this part of BFD and it's also part of CFD? So it's not the ray. It's not the ray that's only in common. They also have points, other points in common, which you cannot have. So this is not adjacent because it's not only the rays that they have in common, they have common interior points. So I'm going to write, no, they have common interior points. Again, they're not right next to each other. One of the angle contains the other angle. So I'm going to erase my markings to do the next problem. All right, the next question is talking about whether AFB, so AFB, and EFD, so I'm going to mark up EFD, are vertical angles. So if you remember vertical angles have to be two straight line crossing, and the opposite angles have to be vertical. Okay, so if you see this is a straight line, correct? If I drew a straight line, it would go like this. Are these vertical angles? No, because the second line is not a straight line. So no. Because FB, ray FB, and ray FE are not opposite rays. They have to be opposite rays, so they have to be making a straight line. Okay, I'm going to erase this again. And we're going to try the third one. The third one is AFE. So AFE is this angle right here. So it's 62 degrees. And let's go purple. And BFC. So BFC, are they complementary? So if to figure out whether it's complementary, if you remember the definition, it has to add up to 90 degrees. So let's try this. 62 plus 28. That gives me 10. That gives me 90. Good. So they do add up to 90 degrees, so they're complementary. All right, we're going to try the next problem. Okay, so we're moving on to example 2. So in this case, I give you a diagram, and we have to identify what which one is supplementary, adjacent, vertical, and complementary. So let's start with supplementary. So supplementary is two angles. Again, these are angle pairs, so they have to be two angles only. So two angles that add up to 90 degrees. So if we look at this, sorry, I'm going to go back. Supplementary angles are two angles that add up to 90 degrees. So in this case, we see a 90 degrees here, but I don't really see a 90 degree somewhere else because I do know, supplementary add up to 180. So I see a 90 degree here, but I don't have any other angle measures. So it has to be two 90 degrees that add up to 180. But there is no markings for 90 degrees. However, we do know vertical angles vertical angles are equal, right? We went over it when I was going over the definition. So if angle 3 is 90, angle 6 is also 90. And what is 90 plus 90? 180. So angle 3 and angle 6 are supplementary. Again, if you think it's also a straight line, but look at this. Angle 1, 2, and 3, it's not an angle pair. There are 3 different angles that add up to 180. So we cannot count that. So let's go to the next one. Adjacent angle. So again, adjacent angle, sorry about this. Adjacent angle are angles that are next to each other. So if we see this, angle 1 and angle 2 are next to each other. But are these the only one? No, I think there are a lot of angles in here that are next to each other. So let's say angle 2 is next to angle 3. So those are adjacent. Angle 3 and angle 4 are next to each other. Angle 4 is next to angle 5. Angle 5 is next to angle 6. And the last one is angle 6 is next to angle 1. So all these are adjacent angles. They are next to each other. Then we're going to go to vertical angles. Again, if you remember vertical angles, they have to be 2 straight line crossing, and it's the angles opposite. So if you see this line crosses with this line, and they're 2 straight lines. So it's this angle and that angle are opposite. So let's say angle 2 and angle 5 are vertical angles, but those are not the only one. So this line is still crossing, but this time let's say it's crossing with this one. So you have angle 3 and angle 6 right? We also have these 2 angles that are opposite of each other, and they have straight lines. So angle 1 and angle 4. Alright, and then the last one, I'm going to erase that. Let's say, all right, complementary angles are angles that add up to 90 degrees. So over here, I do see a 90 degree, but they're not 2 angles that add up to 90 degrees. There has to be 2 angles. But we do know that this is a straight line, correct? So if that's 90 degrees, that has to also be 90 degrees. So angle 4 and angle 5 are complementary. Also, if we see here, this is also 180, right? Because it's a straight line. So if this angle is 90, that angle is also 90 degrees. So angle 1 and angle 2 are also complementary. So we still have to finish this lesson. We're going to continue it in the next video. So I'm going to stop this for right now.